A year ago, I stood on the creaky old porch of the house on Gray Street, holding out a small bundle of keys to my daughter, Eloise. The air smelled like late spring clean. Warm. Full of promise. But her face looked like I'd just handed her a boarding pass to the moon. She stared at me in disbelief, her eyes wide, her hands trembling as she took the keys. "Mom, what is this?" she asked, almost whispering. "It's yours," I said simply. "This house, for you and the kids." It wasn't much, a modest 2-story home with peeling paint. 3 bedrooms. And a backyard, barely big enough for a sandbox. But for a single mother who'd been tossed around by life, it was something extraordinary. It was stability. Eloise had been living out of suitcases for years. Since the divorce, she'd bounced from one rental to another, evicted by rising rents, unreliable landlords, or sudden sales. Her 2 children, Owen 8, and Ruby, just 5, had packed and unpacked their few toys more times than most adults move in a lifetime. They were tired, and I was tired of watching them live like nomads. After my husband Charles died, the house on Maple Avenue, our house for over 3 decades, became painfully quiet. I'd saved and pinched every penny working as a school librarian for 37 years, always planning for that rainy day. And now? It wasn't my rainy day anymore. It was Eloise's, so I decided to act. I gave her the Gray Street house, no strings, no debts, no expectations, just love in the form of brick and mortar. When she stepped into the empty living room, she broke down. She clutched the keys to her chest and sobbed. The kids ran from room to room, shrieking with joy, like they'd just won the lottery. Ruby declared she'd hang a girls only sign on her bedroom door to keep Owen out. I don't know what to say. "Mom," Eloise cried, "this is too much. I can never repay you. You don't have to." I told her gently, "Just raise them in peace. That's enough." The divorce had stripped her down to nothing. Her ex, Daniel, had left her for a younger woman 6 years younger, to be exact, and taken most of their savings. Child support was a joke, showing up irregularly and always less than what was needed. Daniel made sure to change jobs frequently to minimize the amount he legally owed. Eloise, who once dreamed of being a teacher, had settled for a job as a cashier at First National Bank. It wasn't what she wanted, but it was what she had. At first, things blossomed. The kids started school nearby. Eloise began smiling again. I visited every Sunday with homemade pies and fixed what little I could. I helped her hang Ruby's first painting on the refrigerator, and listened as Owen described his new best friend from 2nd grade. The house started to feel alive, safe, like a real home. Ruby joined a small art class at the library, my old workplace, and Owen joined a soccer team. Eloise laughed more. She said things like, "I finally feel like we're not running anymore." The paperwork for the house took months, as it always does in small towns. Between the lawyers, inspections, notaries, and registry office backlogs, it moved slower than molasses. But I didn't rush. As long as they had a roof over their heads, I was content. The legal stuff would catch up eventually. And during those early months, I thought I'd done the right thing. I thought, maybe this would finally break the cycle. Maybe my daughter would have what I never had: a solid foundation. A place to breathe. To dream. To build something for herself and her children. But looking back, I now wonder, did I give her too much? Did I protect her so fiercely that she forgot where the safety came from? Because in the moment she took those keys from my hand with tears in her eyes and hope in her voice, I believed I was saving her. I just didn't know that a gift like that might one day be used against me. It happened on a stormy night in March. I woke to a strange sound like a waterfall. Only indoors. The kind of sound your brain doesn't register until it's too late. I shuffled out of bed, wrapped in my old robe, and flipped the hallway light on. My feet hit cold water before I even made it to the stairs. By the time I reached the kitchen, there was water up to my ankles. It wasn't a leak. It was a flood. A full-on indoor disaster. Pipes that had been in place since the 1950s had given out, bursting in multiple places. Water gushed from cracks, soaking the walls and rising through the floorboards like some monstrous tide. The plumber came the next morning and gave me that look, part pity, part apology that contractors save for the truly hopeless cases. "You're looking at a full gut, Mom," he said. "Pipes, floors, walls. The whole system needs to be replaced. No one should live here during the work." The insurance appraiser arrived shortly after. He confirmed the bad news. The damage was extensive. The repairs would take at least 2 months. And it was unsafe to stay in the house. Mold had already begun to form in the basement. The air smelled like rot. I didn't have many options. Renting a place short-term was expensive and unnecessary. Hotels were out of the question. What was I supposed to do? Live out of a suitcase at 70. And then Eloise, hearing about the flood, said the words that I both hoped for and dreaded. "Mom, come, stay with us. We have plenty of room." At first, I refused. I didn't want to intrude. After a year of living in that house, Eloise had found her rhythm. She was proud of managing her home and raising the children on her own. I didn't want to disrupt that balance. But she insisted, "You've helped us so much already. Mom, let us help you now." So I packed 2 suitcases and returned, this time not as the giver, but as the guest. Eloise cleared a room for me upstairs, beside the kids. It was small but cozy, with a garden-facing window and a firm mattress. I set Charles's picture on the nightstand, just to make it feel like home. At first, everything went smoothly. We fell into a routine. I woke at 7 a.m. to make breakfast, help the children get dressed and out the door for school. Eloise left for work at 8, returning around 6. The house was mine during the day, and I tried to keep it running like clockwork. I started doing the laundry, then the grocery shopping, then the meal planning. Not because Eloise asked, because it felt natural. She was working full-time, holding it all together. I was just doing what mothers do. The kids loved it. Owen had trouble with fractions, so we practiced using pie slices and coupons. Ruby brought me books from the school library, and we invented alternate endings together. Weekends were even better walks in the park, feeding ducks at the pond, little whispered secrets between grandma and grandkids. The house was warm, full of noise, full of life. For the first time since Charles passed, I felt needed. Not just alive, but purposeful. Eloise seemed happier, too less burdened, more rested. She laughed again. She even asked me for advice, something she hadn't done in years. But by mid-May, something shifted. Her smiles became shorter. Her answers to my questions were clipped, transactional. When I offered help, she accepted with a nod but no warmth in her eyes. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. Maybe she was just tired from work. Maybe the stress of being a single mom was catching up again. So I pulled back. I spoke less, stayed in my room more, stopped offering advice. but the tension only thickened. It was like walking through invisible fog. No outright hostility, just a growing chill that made me question every word, every gesture. One night, after the kids had gone to bed, I finally asked, "Am I bothering you?" She looked up from her tea, startled. "No. Mom, of course not," she said. But her voice was flat, rehearsed. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to trace the moment when the warmth between us had curdled. Had I overstayed my welcome? Had my help become a burden? Had the gift of a home become an invisible rope tightening between us? I didn't know the answers yet, but I could feel the ground starting to shift beneath my feet. And deep down, I knew something was coming. It happened on a Saturday morning. The sun had barely crept through the blinds when I felt it, the weight in the air. That kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room. It warns you. The kids had gone down the street to play soccer with the neighborhood boys. I was at the sink, rinsing the breakfast dishes, when Eloise spoke without turning from the window. "Mom, we need to talk." I set down the sponge. Something in her voice, too formal. I turned to face her. She sat at the kitchen table, koffiemug in hand, elbows on the wood. Her eyes were focused somewhere beyond the glass. "Sure," I said cautiously. She looked at me then, folding her hands with that same expression she wore when she filed for divorce or negotiated her job interview. A look that said this wasn't conversation. This was decision. "It's about you living here." I froze. "I already spoke to the foreman. The repairs at Maple Avenue are done," I said. "I could be back there by next week." "It's not just about timing," she said. "It's about principle." Principle. I sat across from her, unsure where this was going. "You gave me this house," she continued, "and I'm grateful. Truly. But this is my home now. My property. And I have to learn how to manage it responsibly." I still didn't get it. Was she angry? Upset about something? She glanced down at her fingers and began counting. "You've been living here for almost 3 months. You've used the utilities, eaten our food, stayed in one of the bedrooms." Then she looked up and delivered the blow with clinical calm. "I've decided it's only fair that you start paying rent." The words hit like a slap. "Rent," I whispered. She nodded. $1,500 a month. That's a fair rate for this neighborhood. I checked listings online. I laughed soft. Involuntary. Stunned. "You want me to pay you rent for the house I gave you. It's not about the past." "Mom, it's about boundaries. About living like adults. Even with family. Especially with family. There need to be healthy expectations." She spoke like a therapist in a magazine article. Like someone who had been coached. "What about everything I've done here? Cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids, that's your choice," she said sharply. "No one asked you to." I stared at her, trying to find even a trace of the daughter I once knew. The one who clutched the keys to her chest with tears in her eyes. The one who promised she'd never forget what I did for her. Now she was talking about leases. "What happens if I say no?" Eloise hesitated. "Then," without flinching, "then you'll have to find another place to stay." I looked out the window. Owen and Ruby were still playing in the yard. Laughing. Shouting. Kicking a ball back and forth without a care in the world. "You're serious." "I am," she said. "This isn't personal. It's just how things need to be." I rose slowly from my chair. "How much time do I have to think about it?" "Until Monday," she said. "If you agree, we'll draw up a formal lease with a lawyer. If not," she shrugged, We'll work something else out. I walked upstairs, numb, as her voice chased me up the staircase. You'll pay me $1. $500 a month, she called out. And no favors. I shut the door behind me. Saturday on the bed. $1,500. For a house I gave her freely. For taking care of her children. For folding her laundry. Reading bedtime stories. And scrubbing her floors. I looked at the picture of Charles on the nightstand and shook my head. This wasn't about boundaries. This was betrayal. And suddenly, everything I thought I knew about my daughter began to crack. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over. You'll pay me $1. $500 a month. And no favors. Each syllable cut deeper than the last. I wasn't angry, I was something colder. Something heavier. The kind of disappointment that doesn't shout, it just settles. By Sunday morning, I called my son, Godwin. He lived in Springfield. An hour away. He'd always been the steady one, practical. Even-tempered. A good listener. Hey, Mom. He answered cheerfully. Is everything okay? No. I said plainly. I need legal advice. About the house. His voice changed instantly. Tell me everything. So I did. The rent demands. The lease proposal. Her boundaries. I held nothing back. Godwin was silent for a moment. Then asked, was the gift ever finalized? I mean, officially registered? No. I admitted. The lawyer said it would take months. There's inspections. Approvals. Some kind of property boundary checks. It's all stuck in process. Then technically, Godwin said slowly, the house is still yours. I sat up straighter. What do you mean? Until the donation is fully registered with the state. Legally. You're still the owner. You can revoke the gift, especially now, with cause. I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt since Charles passed away. Control. I hung up, dug through my drawer, and pulled out the business card of Martin Hatfield, my lawyer, a seasoned man with kind eyes and a sharp mind. I called Monday morning and scheduled an appointment for that afternoon. When I arrived, he listened quietly, hands folded, nodding as I spoke. Then he leaned forward and said, you have every legal right to cancel the gift. The property transfer isn't finalized. If you wish, we can withdraw the application this week. I stared at the form he slid across the desk. So simple. A few lines of ink. And everything could be undone. Are there consequences? I asked. Only the ones inside the family. He said carefully. Legally, the house becomes entirely yours again. You can live in it. Sell it. Do whatever you wish. That night, I didn't answer Eloise's calls. She left voicemails, some apologetic, some defensive, some cold and professional. I turned off the phone. The next morning, I signed the revocation papers. Hatfield submitted them immediately. That was it. The house on Gray Street was mine again. 2 days later, he called back with a surprising discovery. The gift process wasn't just incomplete. He explained. It hadn't even passed the preliminary agency approvals. Tax office, land committee, architectural compliance, all were pending. I blinked. So, for the past year, the house was never legally hers. He confirmed. She was living in your property with no ownership rights at all. The weight of that truth was staggering. She demanded rent on a house she didn't even own. That same afternoon, I called a realtor. Her name was Sandra Wilcox. Confident, efficient, direct. I'd like to sell my property on Gray Street, I told her. She showed up the next morning with a clipboard, a smile, and a camera. It's a great family home, she said as we walked the yard. Nice neighborhood. Good schools. Should sell fast. After a thorough inspection, she estimated $180. Oh, zero on the market. That'll be more than enough for a peaceful retirement. She smiled. And your current tenants? She asked gently. My daughter. I replied, she'll be moving. We signed the contract that evening. She promised to begin showing the home within the week. A few days later, we met the first potential buyers. A young couple, Jason and Millie, with a toddler named Tommy. Jason was an engineer. Millie taught first grade. Sweet, honest people. Tommy ran from room to room, giggling as he touched everything. Mommy, can we live here? He asked, holding his arms out wide. Millie looked at me, then at her husband. We'd like to make an offer. We shook hands in the kitchen. The next day, they submitted a $175. Zero cash offer. No banks. No loans. No games. I accepted immediately. The house was sold. Sandra handed me the deposit check and said, Congratulations. You made a clean, beautiful deal. But as I stood on the Gray Street porch one final time, looking out at the neighborhood where my grandchildren used to play, I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. I had done what needed to be done, but it came at a price. The ad must have gone live around noon. By 4:00 p.m., Eloise was on my front porch, white-faced, breathless, and gripping a printed screenshot of the house listing in her trembling hands. Mom, she said, holding it up like an accusation. What is this? I didn't answer. I opened the front door, stepped inside, and let her follow me in. She stormed after me into the living room. I asked you a question. What does this mean? You're selling the house? Yes. I replied calmly. It's already under contract. Her eyes widened. But you gave it to me. No. I corrected. I intended to. But the deed was never finalized. The house remained in my name the entire time. And now, I've legally reclaimed it. You can't do this, she whispered, like a child waking up in the middle of a nightmare. I have children. Where are we supposed to live? I looked at her and felt nothing. You should have thought about that before demanding rent from your own mother. She sat down heavily in the chair across from me, covering her face with both hands. I didn't mean it. It was Karen, my coworker, she kept telling me. I needed to be strong, to set boundaries. That even with family, especially with family, I had to protect myself. I folded my arms. You took advice from a coworker who's never met me, never watched me raise you, never stood in that living room while you sobbed and thanked me for giving you a home. Eloise broke into tears. The kind that aren't performative, but raw and helpless. Mom, please. I made a terrible mistake. I see that now. I'll make it right. Just don't sell the house. I already did, I said softly. The buyers have signed. They've paid a deposit. And I intend to honor my word. Something I wish you had done. She cried harder, crumpling into herself. You lived there for 3 months, I said gently. Rent-free. With me cooking, cleaning, taking care of your kids, my grandchildren, every single day. You didn't just forget. You recalculated. I was trying to be independent. She mumbled. No? I said. You were trying to control me. There's a difference. She looked up, mascara streaked and lips trembling. But Owen and Ruby, they love that house. Their school is nearby. Their friends live on that street. I love them too. I said, but this isn't about them. This is about you and the choices you made. Eloise stood up abruptly. You're tearing our family apart. No. I said, finally allowing my voice to harden. You did that. The day you stood in that kitchen and asked your own mother for $1, $500 a month, to live in a house she gave you. That was the day you broke something between us. She paced the room like a trapped animal. I'll go to court. I'll challenge the sale. You won't. I cut in. Because there's nothing to challenge. You never owned it. You never had the deed. And no lawyer in town will take your case once they see the paperwork. She stopped pacing. Defeated. Crushed. Mom, she whispered. A final plea. Please don't shut me out forever. I'm not shutting you out. I said. But I am stepping away. Because love without respect is not love. And I deserve better. She left in silence. The door clicked softly behind her. For the next week, the phone didn't ring. The text didn't come. The house was silent again. Quiet. Still. Empty. Godwin came by on Sunday. We sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee, not saying much. She told me, he said finally. I figured. He nodded. She's staying at a friend's place. Looking for rentals. I stared into my cup. Do you think I was too harsh? Godwin paused, then shook his head. No. Mom, you were firm. And you were fair. Sometimes, the only way people learn is when they lose something they thought they were entitled to. The sale closed that Friday. 175. Ling. Clean and final. The new owners brought their toddler. Smiling. Eager. Ready to start fresh. I handed over the keys. One by one. And wished them well. That night, I sat in Charles's old chair and stared out at the quiet street. I thought about Ruby's giggles. Owen's drawings on the fridge. The way Eloise used to hum while stirring pancake batter. It all felt distant now. But sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes the cruelest thing you can do for the right reasons is the most loving,